Hello and a warm welcome to the CNBC Africa special. Now today's broadcast is brought to you in partnership with Durban Tourism, and part of this is to unpack strategies that have been highlighted to really position and enhance opportunities for economic growth within the tourism sector here in Durban. Several investments from private sector players. How do we perform against the macroeconomic landscape regarding South Africa's economic performance? And of course, attaining inclusive economic growth for all participants in the tourism sector are just a few of the themes that we look to unpack. Now, to put things into perspective, 2016 was a very difficult year for South Africa economically, with muted economic growth recorded for the year. However, from a tourism perspective, South Africa saw a 13% increase in international visitors. That's more than 10 million people who visited the country in the last 12 months. And to put that in context, that's almost the size of the population of KwaZulu-Natal visiting the country overall. So with that said, it's quite evident why tourism has been dubbed the new gold for South Africa's economy to really unleash and unlock economic performance. Well, to help us expand on this particular theme further, I have a wonderful panel with me, experts as well as stakeholders within different fraternities of the tourism sector, not only within the city of Durban, but South Africa as a whole. Starting with my guest closest to my right, Phillip Sithole, Deputy City Manager for Ethekwini Economic Development and Head of Durban Tourism, followed by Mmatsatsi Ramawela, the Chief Executive Officer for Tourism Business Council of South Africa, Marcel von Aulock, the CEO of Tsogo Sun, and Dumile Cele, CEO of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We're also joined by wonderful audience members who are stakeholders themselves within the tourism fraternity, and locally international participants too, who are all part of the 7,000 delegates who have gathered here for the Tourism Indaba. You too at home can participate with us in conversation by sharing your views and unpacking some of the insight that will come through the conversation today. The hashtag to use, one of many, hashtag Indaba 2017, hashtag Durban Indaba, and of course adding the account name at Durban Tourism to your tweets. Let's get into the conversation and really unpack what has become a really exciting sector, and I am actually quite grateful given that I've had the opportunity to interact with many of you within the last 4 to 5 years and really unpack some of the opportunities and themes that have come through within business development and tourism development on the continent and in the city of Durban. Phillip, I'd like to start off with you. Perhaps back in 2013, when the overriding theme of taking Durban to the world was just initiated and conversations were underway with regard to sister cities and strategic partners to come on board. Give us a sense as to how far we've come in the last few years regarding the initial plan that was implemented and the gains that we've actually managed to make.
Well, the city of Durban has done so many things since then. Part of it was to work with the private sector to facilitate major investments, both in the south and also in the north of Durban. Part of the work that we do in our cluster is to deal with the approvals of plans for the investors, zonings and so on. So we are excited that quite recently a plan for the expansion of the Beverly Hills has been approved. We are working on the approvals of the Oceans Umhlanga. It has taken off the ground, that investment is billions of rands. It's going to have international brands. Further north, we were dealing with the King's Estate investment, facilitating the approvals for that investment, which is worth more than 46 billion rand over a period of 10 years. There is a report that is going to council next week, which is a final report. And after that report, the investors would then be able to start the project. So that is in as far as capital investment is concerned. But remember that the city also provides bulk infrastructure for such projects. And such bulk costs the city hundreds of millions. So it's a private-public partnership. Then coming back to how do we attract visitors to the city, we can't attract them if we don't have proper infrastructure. So we have not forgotten that one of our jewels is the beachfront. So I'm happy to state that the promenade is going to be extended, the beachfront promenade is going to be extended from Ushaka Marine to the waterfront, and the city has set aside close to 200 million rand for that extension. We anticipate that the project would start around October. Provision of the bulk water supply to the point waterfront. The project is currently on tender. We are hoping that come October, November, we are starting with that project. So there are so many other things that we have done as the city, which are necessary for tourism investment.
Indeed. Well, you've highlighted quite a few opportunities, and I want us to also unpack those in the future with regard to the economic potential and the spin-offs for small and medium enterprises. But you did mention the promenade, and Marcel, that clearly brings us to you, given the investment. 220 million rand, if I'm not mistaken, was invested back in 2013 to see upgrades to some of your facilities, as well as what is now being dubbed the Golden Mile. Give us a sense of initial investment, how we've managed to witness a significant amount of return on investment regarding this partnership that has also taken place with the city of Durban.
So the improvement in the beachfront it's definitely paid off for us. Durban has exceptionally good infrastructure. Actually, it doesn't have an infrastructure problem, it's got a demand problem. You need more people coming in. We've seen, since we started putting money into the refurbishment of the hotels and so on, there's definitely a shift of business back to Durban city versus just Mhlanga and your outlying areas. The hotels are trading at higher occupancy. We're getting better rates than we did before. So the investment into the Durban city infrastructure has worked. I think the urban decay has been reversed, and the starting point of that was the 2010 upgrade of the beachfront. If that hadn't happened, I think Durban probably would have lost its core infrastructure in downtown. So that has worked. There's a lot of work to be done, because the good part of Durban is the beachfront. If you go a little bit back, you're back into derelict buildings, the classic urban decay scenario in older South African cities. But the city is working on that, and they will get that portion back. So we're very happy with the money that we put into the beachfront. The interesting thing about Durban is that it is still very local tourism focused. You spoke about the big increase in international tourism, 13% up over the last year. That is going into Cape Town, and it's going into your Bush Lodge type environment. It's not hitting Joburg, and it's not hitting Durban. And that's a problem. We still have to work on getting that growth to flow through to Durban.
Let's unpack that. So do we start with the infrastructure to ensure that there's a sufficient development and also change in mindset?
Infrastructure in Durban is good.
Infrastructure in Durban is good.
It's a demand thing. It's your air access. Cape Town's worked very hard at getting your international access direct into Cape Town working well. They've done well on that. Durban is working on it. They still don't have enough air access into Durban. That will change the environment. And then it's by and large PR and management of the marketing of tourism to Durban. It has so much to offer. And people forget, 15, 20 years ago, Cape Town as a hotel owner was, to put it mildly, a dog investment. You had a terrible winter period that lasted 8 months, not 2 like it does now. It was not a great return on building infrastructure in Cape Town. That turned as you've built that international market coming through. And you see it in the stats. I mean, they're running at 70% year round, including winter period. Durban's sitting at mid-60s, Joburg sitting at low 60s. That drive of marketing into Durban is your key, and it's your biggest opportunity here. You've got the infrastructure. It's bringing people in.
I think I want to start by agreeing with what Marcel is saying, that Durban has got it all, and where the hard work has to go in, it's into marketing. And I think the marketing it has to be seen within the context that says you need to talk up Durban, and it starts with the locals, talking up Durban. Also the stakeholders that are involved in the industry, the tour operators, the hoteliers and everybody. That's where the real work is going to be. Because one of the biggest problems for South Africa, as a country in particular, I mean, we're not really just talking about Durban per se, is that we don't talk up our country. And so we need our own people to be ambassadors of our country, ambassadors of the city, that this is the city to visit. And Durban is already up there in terms of domestic tourism, as Marcel has said. But we have regional tourism that we need to tap into. We have then the international market to tap in, and all of that You can do all the marketing you want, but if your people are not talking up your destination, that's where lies the problem. But part of talking up your destination, it's also about getting your people involved, and it comes back to your issue around inclusive growth, because we need to get the message of tourism to our people. It's not about talking about it. People need to do tourism. This is why the campaign around I do tourism is very important. Politicians need to say, I do tourism, I walk tourism, because in that we begin to get that message filtering into our communities, into our people, our youth, because to just talk about tourism being the new gold without people seeing the visible benefits of that, it becomes a challenge. And so this is some of the multiple challenges that we need to address as a destination going forward.
As the Durban Chamber, we really have seen a lot of progress taking place in Durban. So what we are able to facilitate is a joint stakeholder environment where all the stakeholders involved in tourism, our city very much involved, our province, private sector, but big and small business. And I think as organized business, what we are able to really do, and we are beginning to facilitate and see that picking up momentum, is creating a platform for the ecosystem of tourism to work. And listening to the amount of investment that has gone in from an infrastructure point of view, from a private sector point of view, hearing that amount of investment that's already in place, we are trying to drive a strategy that says, let's literally unleash a bigger return on the investment that has been put in. And how do we do that? We ensure that we co-package Durban. Marcel speaks about talking up Durban, and I think what's so important is how we repackage our tourism offering, how we find the differentiators that will bring people to Durban. And I think what we are beginning to see is being able to integrate the traditional offerings, as we've heard, with township tourism, with all the various other tourisms that have been more in the outlying areas, and begin to package Durban. And I think it's the same model that needs to work for South Africa and Africa for that matter. And I think the other point that I'd like to make is that, the fact that we've managed to keep Tourism Indaba in Durban for the next few years, I'm hoping that South Africa will make a decision to just make it a Durban event, so that the world knows this is where it happens, because it's in us making sure that we absolutely peg down such offerings as a country, as a region, as Africa, that will begin to attract the more foreign more external or international market, as well as getting the locals involved.
The city of Durban has gotten an extension to host the Tourism Indaba for the next 5 years.
The hosting of Indaba for the next 5 years, we have to innovate. I think when Dumile was here, there was a big talk about innovation. We have to innovate. It has to be here. I mean, this thing of bidding all the time, I think it's a waste of time. Yeah. Let's keep it here, and let's have private sector saying so. Let's have private sector saying so, that they want it here in Durban.
That's a strong call. We'll have to leave it there for today, but a powerful note to leave it on, as we've heard strong voices and strong opinions with regard to the development and positioning of the city of Durban as a prime destination. And of course, the common vision is what needs to take place. Partnerships have obviously been highlighted to ensure that we tap into all the elements that need to be addressed to ensure that the conversation is different within the next 5 years.